Hello and welcome to another free tutorial here on my YouTube. I'm working with Prismacolors and the Bristol Smooth, the 300 series, and that is a Strathmore paper. And we're going to work on a golden egg. I thought that this would be a really cute idea since we are about to Easter, and an egg that is super shiny but then has like a matte kind of finish. It's really odd texture to do, so I wanted to do this for you. So I already have my picture traced out on here. I do use the tracing method. If you do not know how to transfer to get the nice circle or like nice even lines and an accurate portrayal of the picture that you're doing, visit my other video that I have methods of transfer, and I will leave that in the description below. But now we are just going to jump right into it. I am using the Colored Pencil Picker app, and I'm using the Prismacolor 72 set. So if you have that all set up and you have your picture all traced out, let's begin. Okay, so part of me wants to start in this really bright shine. So I'm going to start out by, I'm going to grab my white and I'm going to get cream, and it's really hard to see on the video, so maybe I should trace it out a little bit better for you so you can see. So I'll fast forward through this. Okay, so it's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot of shapes in here that we need to worry about, but there's a lot of blending and a lot of texture. So let's start out in the middle of this shine. It's really white, so let's go ahead and preserve this area and put some white. I'm using circular motions just to get that nice coverage, even coverage. Okay, and then I'm going to work my way out. I have my cream, and I'm just going to start working my way out into this area, this larger circle here. And I'm using the circular motions because even though it's textured, it's not a deep texture, so we'll go back through and we will add that with some grays or maybe some browns. Now you would think too that you would use the gold pencil, but honestly I've used the gold pencil for dog's fur or cat's fur, and it comes up more of a brown, not like a shiny, you know, metallic kind of color. It's just sort of a nice brown. So we're using a lot of different variations of oranges and yellows and some reds to get this nice gold color. Okay, and then I'm going to go back through here around this white area, and I'm just going to blend out this a little bit more. And we're going to start adding some deeper colors. Okay, so let's start about in the middle of this area, and I'm going to very lightly, we don't want to gouge the paper, we don't want to put a ton of pigment down, and we're doing little circles again and just slowly building up this color. So this is sand. We're just going over top of that cream. It's a little bit darker than the cream. It's a little bit thinner up here with the sand. So down here you're getting like a thick layer of this, or a thick, you know, a broader area. And up here it's a little bit thinner. So and then get your yellow ochre and go very lightly over top of that, the sand again. Now if we were using pastel matte or a different type of paper, obviously we would be layering differently. I probably would just go in with the darker colors and then go over top of and blend out with the lighter colors. But since we're using the Bristol Smooth, we kind of work light to dark on this particular subject. And I guess to determine that would be just maybe your preference, or if you have worked with this type of paper before and you've noticed, you know, different things, which is how I see it. Just experience with knowing this type of paper doesn't do well with layering lighter colors on the darker colors. So I usually push in my light colors and then work around it with the darker colors if I want to preserve that nice bright shine. Oh, my cat might start hollering. I'm sorry if he does. He's very old. He's 18 this year. He's been with me for a long time. And sometimes he just yells around and craziness. Now I have cream, and I'm going back through just to kind of blend out some of these harsher edges. I don't want it to be really harsh. I want it to be gradual. And then I'm going to go back through with my sand and still work some of these areas. I'm being very light-handed on this as well, and with really tiny circular motions. The trick with colored pencils is really a lot of layers, and it depends on what type of paper you have, which will determine how many layers you can get. This paper I'm not really sure, but I know it's less than a lot of other papers, but you can still get quite a few, maybe 10 layers. Okay, and then I'm going to go back through with my yellow ochre again, just over these darker areas. Let's see what is going on after that. Okay. So I'm going to start, now that we have that down, I'm going to start with my goldenrod. This is actually one of my favorite colors. And we'll start with that. I actually picked that out without even looking at the colored pencil picker app because I just like this color and it looked like it belonged. I just use it every time I can. I'll use it. If I think that I'll be able to use it, I do. So what I want to do is, you want to come in this way. You want to make sure you overlap this area. You don't want to just start coloring in this side and not overlap. You want it to gradually get darker. So we want to make sure that we overlap it and blend it a little bit with this goldenrod. And we'll go all the way around. My microphone seems to be shaking my camera a little bit, so I apologize for that. For those of you who have been following me for a while, you kind of already know, if you're on my Patreon, you know that I work out of my kitchen. I have a very small home, and it makes sense to have this in the kitchen. It doesn't really fit anywhere else, so it's just a testament. Like, if you're an artist and you want to create, don't let things hold you back. I used to do it on my kitchen table, and then I just got so many supplies that it only made sense to, you know, grab a desk and put it in the corner as far away from everybody as I could, you know, given the space. But yeah, just don't let anything stop you. If you want to create, try not to let excuses get in the way. It can be very frustrating. I totally understand the frustration, trust me. But it can still be done. Don't let it get you down or hold you back. Okay, so you want to keep watching up in these areas. You don't want to go too far, and you want to make sure that you get these nice crisp edges. And in the picture it doesn't have a shadow underneath the egg, so we will add that too, just to make it look more realistic. Shadows can be difficult too, so okay, so I'm going to add, let's add it actually across the way here. It's like, it's a really nice base tone for this, and plus I just really like this color. It's real rich and it blends well with a lot of different colors. And I keep my black and white beside me too. This helps me to see where I'm at in the picture, and then also like what I drew out, and then I also have the colored one next to me over here. So kind of just looking at a lot of different references at the same time. You know, if I get lost, if I have a bigger picture, it's always nice to have the black and white picture beside you, because you can go back and keep looking at it to see where, if you traced, which is why I prefer the tracing method, I can look back and see, you know, where my lines are and where I'm at, what I was actually looking at and seeing. Because sometimes black and white photos can make a shadow appear like a different shape than the picture, than a colored picture on your phone or on your tablet, whatever you're using. So it's always good practice to have multiple, like the black and white, even lightened ones, to see shapes, you know, just to really get it to look the way you want it to look, if you're going for that realistic feel. And this is a lot darker over this area, but I want to put this as a base. I think it's perfect for like a base tone. So I went very lightly over everything with this, or at least this area. And now I'm going to come back in. Let me sharpen up my orange. Get a nice tip on it. Oh, and it broke. Prismacolors are very soft, so sometimes when you sharpen them, they do break the tips off. I know some people don't have any trouble, but you know, I've had a lot of trouble with them, but I do love to use them. They're one of my favorite pencils. I mean, their light fastness is not very good, you know, but they are a lot of fun to work with because they do blend really easily. They're real creamy. They're really nice. And they're a good beginner pencil. You can pretty much find them anywhere. So in like Walmart, or you can get it at Hobby Lobby. Okay, so now I have the orange, and I'm being extremely light on this because it is so bright and vibrant. I don't want it to look like an orange egg. We want it to look like a golden egg. So be very light with this, gentle. Even if you have to keep reminding yourself, or I'll probably keep reminding myself and just say it out loud, because it helps me to recognize if I'm getting too heavy with it. Like here, I probably got a little too heavy, but we'll go back over it with some more goldenrod. Now, if you're a beginner and you're watching this and you don't know where to really turn to for paper, or like, you know, where you should start, honestly, when I was beginning, I didn't know where to start either, and it was really hard for me to get people to answer me. Sometimes they'd make it overly complicated. And I mean, everybody has their preferences, and once you start creating and you try different papers, like, you'll find what you like. So, but it can be really hard because there's so many papers. It can be very frustrating and intimidating, trying to find a paper that suits you and your needs. So, or even pencils. So this is why I choose this Bristol Smooth, because when I was starting out, which I'm going with my goldenrod now, I'm just going to go back over these areas where the orange is. So when I was starting out, I was using a watercolor paper, which I loved. But I kept looking at it, and I know myself pretty well, and I just kept looking at my finished pieces, and I was really, really impressed with them and happy with them. But I kept looking at it and saying, I know I can do better. I know that I see other people creating stuff, and I know that there is a way that I can level up, and I know that a lot of it has to do with practicing, a lot of it has to do with, just sitting down and continuing to learn, which is good, that always helps. But I just felt like my tools were subpar, and even though I was a little bit reluctant to try something new, because I am a creature of habit, aren't we all? I buckled down and I got the Bristol Smooth 300 series, and I went from what I thought was very cartoony to something like way more realistic. It was such a realization for me to have done that. I couldn't believe that I was actually creating animals that looked more realistic, that the paper blended so much nicer. It just it was definitely a level up for me. So I always tell beginners maybe to start with the smooth or colored pencil paper that is smooth and doesn't have a lot of tooth, so that you can practice the blending techniques and everything too. Especially if you have Prismacolor, because Prismacolor, they just blend so nicely. You just can't beat them. I'm sure that there's another pencil out there that is waxy just like the Prismas, but since they were my first set of pencils, I kind of love them a lot. Okay, so once that is in, and I use this too, if you don't have like a nice soft brush, you'll hear me blowing on the paper, but excuse me, but the brush is a lot better on this. Now if it were the pastel matte, I probably wouldn't use the brush. I do a lot of blowing, but you have to watch your spit and stuff so that you don't ruin the paper. Okay, so now I'm going to jump in with some terracotta. Terracotta is like a brownish red, and it's a really nice color. It's very, very like warm. It's but it's not super bright. Like, it's not overbearing, and we'll be very light on these. I'm sharpening my terracotta and the tip keeps breaking. You get that. Sometimes the cores, they're just so soft that sometimes they break inside of the wood. Okay, so I'm going to start in this area. There's some coming up in this area, and then we have the darker in this area. So let's start, and we're just very lightly adding this. I might come back through with maybe a darker, like a mineral orange or something else, maybe a brown, because we don't want to get it too brown, I guess, or too red. We want it to be more like a brown. Sometimes the colored pencil picker app, you either love it or hate it. I like it for a bunch of reasons, but I also argue with it a lot. So it's telling me to put this terracotta, and it wants me to put Tuscan red too. I think Tuscan red, in my opinion, is a little too dark, or a little too red, I guess I should say, for this area. The area on the picture looks more brown to me than it does red. So I'm going to add this, but I'm going to be very gentle with adding this, and then I'll probably come back through with a brown. And we'll come up around here, and this is really dark up here. Let's see what the app says. It says Tuscan red, but with the orange and all that, I'm going to argue with it, and we're going to fight a little bit with it, and we'll see how the brown goes. because it is really helpful if you don't know, if you're just starting out and you don't know the colors or the mixes. But if you have a little bit of experience, you might be seeing your colors differently than what the app is telling you. And that's fine too. But I mean, it's looking okay right now. I think it looks nice. We're just going to keep adding. Another thing you want to watch for too, now that I'm thinking about it, is if you do the tracing method, or even if you're doing freehand, you want to watch the pressure in which you are transferring to your paper. I used to struggle whenever I would transfer it. I would basically push so hard that I would have like gouges and I couldn't color into it, so I'd end up having to be extra heavy-handed just to try to fill in those marks because I didn't want them there. They didn't belong. But just watch how you do that transfer, and you should be okay with when you color, not have to worry about that. Let's bring this curl up here. So let's take some dark umber. It almost has a little undertone of a red, so I want to continue with that theme with this. So let's try the dark umber, and we're just going to very lightly, don't push hard. We're not burnishing, and if you don't know what burnishing is when you are taking the colors and you're smushing them together really hard. You're really just like going in there and pushing them together, and we're not doing that. This is just adding a very light layer, which I see like a line right here. It looks like it's from production or maybe from storage. But yeah, we're just going to put a very light layer of this dark umber in here. Not pushing hard at all. If you can look at how easy I'm going on it, there's just a very light layer getting put on. So, and this is a bit darker here. We'll just add a little more pigment. Kind of goes lighter, and then we will also add some in this area. And I'm going to come back through with my goldenrod, and we're just going to do a layer over top of it to blend it a little better, because you can see a little bit of the tooth coming through. It's really not a lot, but layers are definitely useful. Okay. Ooh, maybe I'll use my yellow ochre instead. Now, let's go with our goldenrod here, and we're just going to do a light layer again, and just doing small circles, and you're blending a little bit. You're not burnishing. We're just blending a little wee bit, trying to get those colors to push around a little bit. Now, some other pencils are a little bit more difficult to blend. They have a harder core. They may be oil based, they may be a wax oil base. I have a few of those. I do find that when you're getting like really tiny details, Prismacolor is not the one to do it with, because the pencils get so dull so fast because they are so soft. So when you get into the harder cores like the Polychromos, or the Pablo pencils, they do wonderful for whiskers, for stuff like that, little tiny hairs. If you're creating an animal or something with like maybe a coconut with hair, like hairy you know, a kiwi or something. So they are much nicer for those really tiny, tiny details. And that is starting to look nicer. Let's break up this shape just a little bit more. And let's take our yellow ochre and we're going to come through here. The only thing that I see about, or that I have a problem with this paper, you might notice that some of your Prismacolors like to chunk up on the paper. I don't know why that is. I really don't. I'm sure it's the wax like sticking to itself and kind of creating that chunky look. You can see a little bit like in here and in there. It can be frustrating, especially if you're trying to get a smooth, you know, a smooth surface here or a smooth look. Sometimes I'll touch the paper to pull up some of the flakes that come off so that it doesn't chunk. Sometimes you can draw over it to kind of pull them out a little bit. Very, very good. I'm really liking this picture already. Starting to look like a golden shiny egg here. And I'm just going to come over all of this. See what else we can do. Dust it off a little bit. So this area in between the shadow of the base of the egg is very bright. That's where the gold look really looks. So we're going to use, I picked out two like orangey yellows. I've got the yellowed orange and the sunburst yellow, and I'm going to start with the yellowed orange. And I'll probably still use my goldenrod just to keep the same, ooh, that stuff stuck to me. Just to keep the same look, you know, and have it blend well. So let's start in the middle here. We'll just start in this area because it is a little bit darker. You might not be able to tell if you're just starting out. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate colors. So especially with pencils, when there's so many different colors, it can be really hard to recognize what color you're looking at, which is why the colored pencil picker app is very helpful when you're just starting out. So we're actually just going to come up around here and bring it all the way down with this yellowed orange. I'm not pushing hard, I just want to get a light layer. And the reason why we do the circular motion is because if you start going like this, you're going to get uneven lines. It's going to be like real sketchy looking, and it's just not going to be really what you want. So keep with the circles, you get like a nice even tone. And you can even go back over it if you see some uneven parts. Let's bring this up a little bit here. Because the goal here is to make it look round. So we want to keep these nice, you know, fluid shapes going through. And okay, so get your yellow ochre. We're going to do that too. We're going to bring it up in here. This is definitely a lot darker, so let's actually, where is my, okay, I have my oh my, dark umber. And we're just going to, my pencil's so tiny I don't have a name on it anymore, so we're just going to come all the way to this side here and then bring it up. Okay, so now the yellow ochre. Another thing you might want to watch too, which it doesn't bother me, but it might bother you, is this is dark and this is light. So sometimes when you draw, especially with the Prismacolor, I think that the wax base just kind of grabs itself, and if you go like this, you're going to have it, you're going to have it on your pencil. You're going to have that dark, and it might ruin a piece. Like if you're working with a black and white picture with Prismacolor, the white really grabs the black, and sometimes you'll get streaks or spots of gray. But depending on how you want that to look, it might be a catastrophe or it might be okay. So just be very, very careful when you're going through with like a white or a black, because it can, I've had pieces where I'm like freaking out because I'm like, oh no, what did I do? I wasn't watching, so I guess don't freak out. And of course there are methods to where you can use the taping method and pull up some of that pigment, so that way you can save it. Okay, so now I'm going to use, what do I want to use? I'm going to try this Sunburst Yellow. Sorry if my camera is shaking. And we're just going to come along here in between and give it a little bit more of this orangey gold look. Okay, and I'm going to bring it across very lightly. You can go a little bit up into this darker area just to blend it a little bit, because we haven't even gotten to the texture yet. That's gonna be a little bit more fun. And just keep looking at your reference photo. Make sure you're doing it accurately. Of course, if you're a little bit of a free bird and you just want to kind of have fun with it and make up your own, that's also fine. We're going to come up in here with this. This is still the Sunburst Yellow, and I'll probably go over top of it with the yellowed orange. Just try your best to get in these nice tight spots and blend out these colors. Okay. Let's get some yellowed orange in here. And I'm going to work a little bit up in this darker area and then pull it into the lighter area. Just blend it a little bit better. And just take your time with it. Colored pencil can take hours. I've had lots of pieces that have taken me over 40 hours to complete. And sometimes, you have to take breaks. Obviously, 40 hours is a long time. But if you find yourself rushing, trying to get through it, and you're satisfied with the way that it looks, to prevent you from ruining it or thinking that you might ruin it if you just keep pushing through, chances are if you do push through, you might just ruin it. Take a break, take a walk, do something else. I know I'll take breaks and I'll wash my dishes, do my laundry, you know, the daily household chores, feed the dog. And, you know, it really helps to take breaks. I know when I get almost to the end of one, always see myself kind of rushing because I'm excited to share it with everybody. I want to show them, you know, how cool is this, you know. But if I rush through it, I end up like going back and having to fix things, and then I'm frustrated because, you know, I should have just slowed down. You know, so don't do that to yourself. Take your time. Colored pencil's very slow, especially if you're working on a really big piece. This is obviously a really small piece. It's what, like probably a 6x6 square, not very big at all. And I'm just going through and adding more color. Now I'm kind of skipping over these areas. I mean, I'll probably come back through and do another color like a yellowy or something like that. Okay, let's actually do some sand here. Let's work it through. And that's actually blending it super nicely. It's almost brightening that yellowed orange up a lot. I might not get to use goldenrod on this part. See, now it's starting to smooth out a little bit with the sand, and we're not pushing real hard, but we're just giving a little pressure to make it blend. We don't want to really gouge the paper so that we don't have any tooth left, because if you ruin the tooth, you don't get any more layers. You're kind of game over on that, and then it starts to get real muddy if you start trying to force more layers. And it's funny because when I first started out, I didn't understand what people meant by muddy. And I feel like I'm like one of those people that it's like go big or go home. Like I just jump into it and I start doing it. I don't research, and it's really probably dumb of me dumb of me to do stuff like that, but I kind of learn that way. There's a lot of people that learn that way, I suppose. But you just kind of jump in and you learn through process. And that's just how I am. That's who I am. So, yeah. So anyway, here. I want to blend this a little bit better. So I am going to use goldenrod. Okay, so take your goldenrod. Let's pull this out a little bit further. add some shapes in here to give it a rounder look. So just kind of following where you put those shapes before. If you did how I did, kind of just add some of these shapes. And then let's also blend this out too. And we'll get into the texture here too pretty soon, because we're almost kind of done with the egg. Okay, let's try a little bit of some light umber and get some of this red out, make it more brown. Let's do a little bit of cream on some of the edges here, just to brighten them up a little bit. Let's do a little bit of cream over here. We're going to put a little bit more pressure. Oh, and it broke. That's that Prismacolors. I've heard of people like putting their Prismacolors in the microwave. I tried that once and I didn't get any luck with it. Some people were like, oh, I put mine in the microwave for a couple seconds and it kind of mends the break inside of the pencil. I tried it once. It didn't work for me. I could see though, if you have like, I don't know, maybe a rice pack, like a heating pad or something like that, like kind of wrapping them up in it, trying to mend that break, because it is wax. So in theory it should sort of mend together or melt or get soft and, you know, mend back together. So it's possible, and some people have had luck, but I've never had luck with that. So if you do, I'm glad. So if you are really struggling with breaks, you can try that. I would try it on a pencil that, you know, is either almost used up or that you don't use a lot or something, just so that it doesn't ruin a good one, you know. Okay, so oops. Okay. So down here, I'm going to go with we're going to do the dark umber, and I'm just going to go along the bottom very lightly. I don't want to make it crazy here. It's nearly black, but we're going to go with brown for now. And let's add a little bit up here. And then let's start now filling it in. We'll go with our goldenrod first. You can tuck it down in a little bit to the dark umber just to blend it a little better so it grips up that dark umber and makes the goldenrod a little darker. Okay, and let's go in with some, let's try some yellow ochre in between here. Just to blend those edges together. And bring it into the goldenrod a little bit. Take some light umber. Let's take a little bit of the terracotta just so that it matches more up here. You see, you can see a little bit of my trace lines. I go a little too heavy. Okay, I go back with my light umber again. There's about, right here there's like a rounder edge, so it's not quite straight across. I'm going to come back through with my terracotta again, and we're just adding light layers, just building that up. And you might go through an ugly stage too. That is quite common, where you're really not liking it, but you really don't want to give up on it. A lot of times I find if you push through that ugly stage and just keep processing it, a lot of times it turns out okay. And it's not, it was just that phase, you know, it just kind of tricked you into thinking it was useless to continue. So now I have the dark umber, and I just want to gently add another layer here, just so that we don't have this hard dark umber line. Try to get rid of this line here. Okay. And then let's take some, I'm going to take some yellowed orange, and I think I'm going to keep adding some layers to this to give it more of a gold look. Plus we can blend it into this too. Let's do some dark umber in this area. We're going to start now putting in the texture. Now I'm just going to very lightly make circles, and I'm not going to fill those circles in. just little circles. It's not like the circles we were doing in here, but just allowing some of that undercolor to show through. Okay, let's do some down here. Just going to add little shadows of the texture. And then I'm going to grab my yellow ochre. Let's put some more up here too. Give it more of that texture that you see in here. Since there's no shadow, I picked black, and I have a cool gray 50 and a cool gray 20. So where you want your shadow is right where the egg would be touching a table or wherever it's sitting. That is where your darkest point is going to be. So, and because the egg is round, you're going to have rounded edges here. So let's just bring it to about this point. I'm going to do that. Let's do the cool gray 50. We're just going to draw a little bit into the black, and we're just going to pull out a little bit. You might want it to go behind the egg a little bit. Now let's get the cool gray 20 and work it into the 50 here. And then just very lightly pull it out from that shadow. Let's add a couple more layers doing that. So I'm going to go back with my black, and I'm going to go a little bit further into this cool gray 50 here area, because we don't want it to be too much of a contrast, like a difference. We want it to slowly fade. And then the cool gray 20. A lot of times if you're having trouble with your pencils, if they're not blending together, chances are you don't have enough pigment down for them to you know, pushed together. So try just adding another layer. Mine wasn't blending, it blended well over here, but then it didn't do it over here, so I didn't have enough pigment. Okay, I like that. Alright, so I'm going to grab my white, and I'm going to try to add, since this is like, the white probably won't show up, honestly, but it'll probably give us just a little bit of lighter variations of the yellow, which it is. And the white is also known for really breaking, like shattering. Mine split all the time. So now I'm just adding little bits of like shine in just different areas, just to give it more texture, more feel. Now if you're going for a really white look and you need the shine to be really bright, like if you're doing an eyeball, or say here you want to make sure that this is really bright, and you didn't preserve it, I would say use a gel pen. I have Arteza gel pens and they're fairly cheap, so you can get like a 12 pack for, you know, pretty small amount of money, like $8, maybe even $5, but they are nice. But if you've preserved it like we did in the beginning, you really won't need to put that gel pen on. Let's brighten this area up quite a bit here, and then we'll do it over here too. We kind of burnished that area a little bit. White is used an awful lot for burnishing too. Just so you know, you can push a lot of pressure on this and mush those colors together. So this could be a really good exercise for burnishing if you want to. You can just put a lot of pressure, and that's what I'm doing right now, is pushing down really hard. And the white is changing the color a little bit, but it is smoothing it out. Or I guess the colors, it's smoothing the colors out a little bit. So there's our golden egg. I might try to work a little bit more over here, just to get a better feel over here. With Easter coming, I was thinking, I was like, what would be fun? And I want to do a little chick, which I might still do a little chick, which will be on my Patreon for my members. But just like thinking, like, what would be fun, a quick tutorial for people that just want to learn and want it to be more festive. So I come up with a golden egg. I know that was the one thing when I was a kid, it's like magical, you know. You like thinking about, you know, what would be the coolest thing. You had the goose that laid the golden eggs in that one story, the childhood story, and everyone was trying to steal it from the giant. What was that story called? James? No, not James and the Giant Peach. I thought he had a giant in there. I don't know. I'm not too up to date, I guess, on those stories. Maybe you can write it in the comments to tell me, so I know. With the magic beans, I'm sitting here thinking they're magic beans. You probably think I'm stupid. Can't think of the story name. I'm sitting here like engulfed in my art picture and can't think of a story name. So anyway, leave it in the comments. See if you can tell me what it is. Okay, I'll leave that up to you guys. You can tell me what it is so I can go, oh yeah, that's it. Okay. Well, I am pretty thrilled with that for a quick tutorial on how to do a golden egg. So I hope you like it, I hope you create with it, and I hope you've learned something, most importantly. So have a great day, and also share with me. I am on Facebook. You can show me what you created. You can share this with anybody that you want. It is here for you to do. So thank you very much.